What's up, guys? We're gonna do another walk around video here. This one is of my wife's 2008 Suzuki LTZ400. Originally bought it stock a couple years ago, just with the intentions of her being able to kind of come out and tag along and have some fun in the trails. But as many of you know, things kind of get out of hand and you start modifying everything, and before you know it, you're riding it more than she is, which is kind of what happened in this case. So I kind of want to do a walk around video of this. I feel like these are pretty underestimated quads. Everyone is always about the 450s and 700s, and these are often overlooked. And I think they shouldn't be, because I think most people mainly ride trails or ride recreationally. They're not motocross racers. But this one can do it all. It can do it from the motocross track. It can hang in the trails with the best of them. You can set it up for drag racing, hill climbing, whatever. And the best part of it is it has reverse. And the only 450 that has reverse is the Kawasaki KFX450. So really, if you want a sport quad that has reverse, you could get a 2005 or newer 400EX. You could get a Raptor 700, a Raptor 660, or a KFX 450. I think that's really about it when it comes to your sport quad. I like these. They're super affordable. They're very reliable. Engines based off the DRZ 400. Millions of those out there on the road. Plenty powerful for what they are, and they're very easy to extract power out of with not a whole lot of mods. This one, the engine has never been open, ever, not even for a valve adjustment. Starts first push of the button with the stock carb, with the FCR carb that I have on it now. It doesn't matter. They're just bulletproof. I had one that I rode myself for 4 or 5 years in high school, and I loved it, and I wanted to get another one day, and this was the perfect excuse. So anyway, I'll do it similar to the 250R walk around video that I did. I'll kind of start with the controls and kind of go from there. You'll kind of see that I like to have most of my stuff set up the same. I didn't get to do a walk around video of the Raptor I had, but it was pretty much set up a lot like the 250R and the Z400 here. A lot of the same parts and components. I like to be able to go from one machine to the other, and everything kind of feels this, the setup, the ergonomic setup feels the same. Just easier to transition from one machine to another and feel comfortable on it for the day. So anyway, here we go. We got the Fasst Flexx 15-degree handlebars, Urmosi Throttle, Rogue grips, Powermadd handguards, Tusk kill switch there, and I didn't go with a works connection clutch lever on this one. I went with the Pro Taper. And guys, I honestly think this one might be better than the more expensive works connection. These are only about 60 bucks, 65 bucks on Amazon. And they are smooth as butter. In fact, this clutch setup might be as smooth as like a hydraulic setup on some bikes. I mean, this thing is it's super light. Love it. So that's pretty much it for the controls. With the chassis, it's a stock frame. On my old Z400, I did the, if you were kind of around, if you were in the sport quad world at that time, the thing to do was to gusset a lot of the frames, especially the Z400 frame. The early ones were really known to cracking. 03 specifically, 04 a little bit, and then in 05 they kind of did some improvements and actually added gussets from the factory, like on the shock towers and a few other areas. But this is an 08, so I didn't really feel the need. I wasn't going to motocross this thing very hard. I just didn't feel the need to gusset this. It's plenty strong, and if you set your suspension up right, I really don't think you need to. I think it was mainly back in the day when the hardcore racers were using these. When they were competing against the 450s on these, if you were motocrossing them pretty heavily, you probably should gusset the frame. But for riding how we do, they're fine. They're really good. I did match I did paint the subframe. These usually come like silver. I did paint it to match the the main frame up front. I just think that color looks sweet. I think it's like deep blue purple. You can get the color from, or you can get the paint from Colorite, or you can use a Ford color. I think it's called deep blue metallic or something like that. They were using it on the Mustangs and in the Focuses, I think. I can't remember, but it's pretty close. And I just think it kind of ties it all together. And that color just looks sweet with the white. I love that blue. Let's see here. We got Alba front and rear grab bars. I kind of like that IMS look up front. Very simple, easy to pick and lift the quad up. And then on the back, I went with a wide one, kind of like I have on the 250R. Again, easy to pick and lift up. Let's see here. These are Tusk heel guards. They don't make these anymore. Found them used, I think on the forum or Facebook Marketplace. I don't know, but I refinished them. These are the factory Suzuki Nerfs that you could like buy at the dealership back in the day. I was able to also find these on Marketplace, and then I replaced the nets with JSR Moto. They're a good company to deal with. They do a really good job. They're pretty popular right now. If you go to any of the races, motocross or cross country, a lot of them have these JSR nets on there. See, attack gripper seat cover. Did that. Got the GBC XC Masters again. I got the Alba bead locks on here. Sometimes I'll throw them on the Honda too. On this one, I have a TM Designworks polyurethane skid. These fit really good. If they make one for your quad and you want to get a good skid plate, I would recommend the TM Designworks. I did have to trench them a little bit for the U-bolts for the Nerf bars on the front, but other than that, they fit perfect. I mean, and all the drain bolt holes lined up. The hardware is pretty cool. They have like polyurethane kind of hardware. Goes on really good. Let's see here. Front suspension. We are running Hauser +3 wide +1 forward A-arms. These are not long travel. They're standard travel. You could use them with your stock shocks. I did for a little while. They're really good. The problem is they don't make them anymore because most of the companies have stopped supporting this quad. They've stopped supporting most sport quads except for Yamaha, the YFZ450 and the TRX450 and the Raptor 700. But pretty much other than that, they don't really support a lot of the older quads, which is a shame. And the companies that do, I try to support as much as possible. But anyway, these are, Hauser just makes, at least they were known for making bulletproof products, and I've always loved Hauser products. I get them when I can. If I can't get them, I'll get Lone Star. So they're pretty good. If you can find some, grab them. They're still floating around out there. I have Fox Float 3 shocks on the front, just like I do with the 250R, except these ones are standard travel. The Suzuki kind of comes with longer shocks from the factory. They're not long travel, but they're longer than a lot of factory shocks on a lot of sport quads. I think they're a little over 17 inches, and they're pretty long for a standard travel shock. I think they do a good enough job myself for how I ride. This is more of like a endurance quad, trail quad. If I go to a Cal National Forest and want to put 60 to 70 miles on it in a day, I'll take this quad, and it does great. Handles the motocross track fine too with these shocks, no problem. Again, Streamline stainless brake lines. I run the dual braided setup. You can see I have it on here, and I also have it on the 250. Kind of nice. It simplifies things. You get a little bit more fluid capacity. You get a little bit more positive braking and less brake fade. If you're in like a racing situation or you're pushing it real hard, you do notice a difference. At least I do. I think they're worth it. I think they look a little more trick than just the standard, single line down to a T block. I think it just looks a little bit better. And it makes more sense when you think about it. Each caliper has its own line. Same with the rear. Streamline. On the front, it's a pretty popular mod. You can do this on the Z400 and the 400EX. the YFZ450 calipers will bolt right up. They all use Nissan brakes, and these bolt right up. The factory calipers are single piston and these are dual piston, so there's a little bit more stopping power. I highly recommend, if you have a Z400 and you ride it hard, if you're an advanced rider, if you're not just putting around on the trails, if you push the quad a little bit, get these. They're not a lot of money. You can get them for under 40 bucks. Put some new pads in them, make sure they don't leak, and bolt them up and go. Awesome mod. Let's see, Alba +2 stem, flat black or whatever, matte black powder coat. I like these. I had one of these on the Raptor 2. They're kind of a knockoff or a rip-off, a Chinese copy of the roll designs. Very similar. I don't know. I don't notice anything bad with them. They're easily available. You get them in a couple days if you mess one of them up. They bolt up and they work good, and you get the Antivibe set up. So I think they're worth it, even if you just get a stock length one. But this one I also have a precision stabilizer on, and they're kind of hidden on these, so they're really hard to adjust, but you can see it right there. It's kind of hidden. It's up higher. Usually on a lot of the other quads are down here, on the Honda, the Yamahas, they're all down here. And the LTR I think even mounts up here, but the Z400, they put it way up here. Luckily I have a lot of stuff deleted, so if I want to adjust anything, I can get to it from the top with a long screwdriver. But yeah, pretty simple, simple setup, simple deal. Handles great. I love it. Onto the rear. Let me push this guy forward a little bit. On the rear, I'm running a factory rear shock that's been resprung and revalved by Kevin Groff of Jogica Suspension. Awesome guy to deal with, super friendly, will pretty much do anything you want him to do. You can powder coat the springs any color you want them powder coated. He's probably the most affordable shock builder out there. He's out of Arizona. Throw your shocks in a flat rate box, send them to him, get them back a couple weeks. They perform awesome. I mean, I would say this is as good as the Elka that I had on the Raptor and the 250R over there. I'm actually even thinking about finding a stock shock for the 250R, the rear shock, and sending it to him and just doing like a comparison, because he's so reasonable and he does such a great job. Do it. If you have a quad with factory shocks that have reservoirs and you don't feel like spending the money on Elkas or something else, go with him. He does a great job. I went with a local company for the rear shock on the Elka because I just wanted to try somebody local, and he did a great job, but he was much more expensive than Kevin. So I have that. I have a PEP 8mm linkage. I don't know if you can see that there or not. I like this. This is a good mod. You can still find these used. PEP, GT Thunder, they were pretty much the same. Elka was a little bit longer and was mainly designed for their shock. And there's a few other linkages out there floating around. But if you could find a PEP or a GT Thunder XC linkage, or even an MX, it lowers the quad a little bit, maybe a 3/4 of an inch to an inch. It lowers the ride height, and it also provides more travel, which is just, you get the best of both worlds. So you get better handling. It's lower to the ground, lower center of gravity, and you get more travel. So it soaks up the rough stuff even better. It's kind of cool how that works. But so we have that set up. I was kind of tired of the stock swing arms cracking. When I bought this, the swing arm was cracked. I replaced it with another stalker. If you're not familiar with the stock swing arms on these, they're very similar to what came on the Quadzilla and the LT250R. It's like a big boxy aluminum looking swing arm. Nothing wrong with them. Everyone kind of complains about the chain adjustment on those. I never had a problem with the chain adjustment. I just had a problem with them cracking, and the every now and then the carrier would kind of the axle carrier would almost become tilted either left or right, which would kind of like throw off your steering a little bit. I guess you could kind of attribute that to the chain adjustment. But the superior setup is the 250R style, the roundhouse. It's called the roundhouse style carrier setup, and it's like a cam. you know, so you adjust your chain kind of like a Honda or Yamaha. Got this from Fireball. Kind of up in the air how I feel about it. I got it because the price was right. It's like quite a bit cheaper than a Lone Star or another company, by like $400 or $500. Build quality is excellent. Fitment was pretty good. They didn't really do what I asked. I wanted a chain slider mount. They didn't do that. The chain guide mount up front, or the chain slider mounts up front, are a little wonky. Kind of have to do a little finagling to get that to work. The rear sprocket was actually a 1/4 inch inboard from the front sprocket, so the sprockets weren't like 100% lined up when I put everything together. I got with them. They sent me like a little spacer thing to fix it, but I don't know. I'm not really happy with it. If I find a Lone Star or a Hauser for sale, it has all the hardware, I'm just gonna probably get that and sell this. Got a Tusk +4 adjustable axle. Can't say enough good things about these. A lot of people bag on Tusk for kind of cheap products, but you know, I ran one of these on my old 400 and I rode that one way harder than this one. Never bent one. They're only $200, lifetime warranty. The chrome finish will chip and fade, but the axle itself is pretty stout. And they come with a pretty cool locking axle nut. And they have the little spacers, kind of like a Lone Star, or, you know, a regular Durablue or RPM. I think they're good. People can bag on them and hate them and say they've bent them and snapped them, and they've had an uncle or best friend's friend that it broke and they killed themselves or whatever. I don't know. I've never had a problem with them. I'll get another one. If that Durablue wears out on the 250R, I'll get one for that. So, whatever. Stock brake in the rear, Tusk Typhoon rotor on that one, or a wave rotor. Either way, same thing. It's pretty much it back here, I think. Yeah. Like I said, the engine's stock internally. It's never been opened. I do have plans for it. I'm just apprehensive about it. I kind of like the stock reliability. I know I can do some things and not really affect the reliability, but I just kind of like leaving them stock internally. It's a woods quad. I don't need 50 horsepower or 60 horsepower or any of that. It'll keep up with a 700 or 450 in the woods just fine, in my opinion. At least I do. I am running a Mishimoto radiator. A little bit, it's oversized, helps cool a little bit better. Stock one's fine. The only reason I'm running that one is because I ruined the factory one when I was changing out the steering stem. Got a little angry and a little frustrated and yanked the stem out and of course crushed the radiator. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. Yeah, so stock engine, full Yoshi RS2 exhaust. That's just a little Pro Design oil filter cover. Allows you to drain the oil before you pull the cover. It's kind of cool. I don't know. Doesn't solve the whole oil mess problem when you do an oil change, but it helps a little bit. Yep, full Yoshi RS2. Spark arrestor is removed. Under the seat, running a Pro Design, ProFlow setup, K&N, outerwear. I've got my EVOL settings written down right there. I always seem to forget that when that's the one thing about the EVOLs I didn't really say on the 250R walk around or on this one yet, but you should check your pressures before every ride and adjust if needed. You need to do the EVOL chamber first and then the main chamber for the ride height. What is cool about these, and I didn't mention it also, is that if more than one person shares the quad, like my wife rides this every now and then, and I ride it mostly. So I have a setting for myself, a pressure setting for myself for the ride height, and then I also have a pressure setting for my wife. It's awesome. A spring shock, you couldn't do that. You would have to change springs. You could adjust the ride height to compensate a little bit, but it wouldn't be right. These you can literally change. You have infinite spring adjustability with these because it's air. So you get to decide what the ride height is and the spring rate is, not the shock. It's pretty cool. So I have a setup for me, and then I have a setup for my wife when she rides it. I make it a little softer, and then I can reset the ride height so it sits. You know, if I have it set up for me and then she gets on it, the ride height's going to be really high in the front. So I have a setting for her so it's correct. It's pretty cool. So yeah, got the Pro Design set up there. I had the same setup on the Honda. I don't think I had that in the walkthrough video. Same exact setup on that though. Clamp-on style K&N filter, and then a common mod on these back in the day, and I guess you could say it's still common, is the FCR carburetor from a YFZ or a like a Polaris with a KTM 450 or whatever. You can snag these off of them. Really, really awesome carburetor. It's a flat slide carburetor. It replaces the stock vacuum carburetor. I don't want to spend too much time on this, as there's a lot of videos on YouTube about this with the DRZ and this quad. But basically, the stock carburetor is 36 millimeters. It's a vacuum operated setup. So as you open the throttle, the vacuum increases, the vacuum slide will open. This is the stock carb, and that's how you get your airflow. Nothing wrong with it. Pretty reliable. Excellent for elevation changes. It was a good carburetor probably for this quad for most people. If you ride these hard, you really want an FCR. This increases the diameter to 39 millimeters. It's a flat slide carb. It's connected right to the throttle cable, so there's no lag at all. Like when you crack the throttle, the slide is completely open. It's not waiting for engine vacuum to build, nothing. It's boom, it's instant. Just like a 450, you know, it's a racing carburetor. It's killer. And rumor has it these engines were designed around the FCR. The DRZ400E came from the factory with an FCR until like 2006 or 2007. So, but yeah, I would say that this carburetor alone would add 2 to 3 horsepower on a stock engine. So, good mod. And a good mod to go with it is the replace the petcock, the factory petcock, with a Raptor 660 petcock. Again, not vacuum operated, and you still get the reserve on and an off feature, whereas the stock carb you only have on, reserve, and prime. Because it's vacuum operated, that's how it keeps the fuel from flowing when it's off. This one's a little better, and it works in conjunction with the FCR carb. So like the 250R, I have a UPPK saver. Works really good. And then again, primary drive sprockets, gold X-ring chain. Boom. Solid, reliable quad. Plenty fast. In a drag race, yes, you'll lose to a 450 or 700, sure. But in the woods or normal riding, it's going to keep up with them just fine. It's going to require less maintenance. You get reverse. It's a little bit more comfortable. Has the same kind of feel as a 250R, but it sits up just a little bit higher. You can change that with suspension, but overall, excellent quad. If you leave it in stock form, it's a good learning quad for somebody. And then you can also grow with it and make it into a quad that will compete with the 450s easily. I mean, Doug Gust won 2 championships on it versus the TRX and YFZ, if that's any inclination. Granted, that was a 450 motor from Yoshi, but still. If you guys have any questions or comments, suggestions, anything you want to see or want me to do, leave a comment down in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Thanks.